Hey, good morning, guys. All right, Matt Hinson,
Justin Vogt.
I'll let you give your own little intro here.
Wonderful to see so many familiar faces. My name's Justin Vogt. I manage a long-term holding company, which is the topic of the day, I guess, at least in the Twitter world, called Evermore Industries. We started about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, bought a business called Avuity based in Cincinnati, Ohio. We sell Internet of Things sensors to corporate office occupiers around the world. And as it pertains to this conversation today, while we were actually based here in Austin, ran a fairly large-scale sourcing mechanism to acquire businesses via the proprietary channel. So while hearing from Clint was fantastic, we didn't really use that channel a whole lot. We were very much direct to business buyer or to business owners in an effort to buy a company.
Matt Hinson, I work for a private equity-backed transportation business as Chief Development Officer, and so 100% of my time is spent on proprietarily sourcing acquisition targets and add-ons. And so what we're going to speak to you guys about is really how we go about doing that without a broker. So by show of hands, I'm expecting it's going to be a lot. How many people here are actively searching, interested in searching, want to buy a business? Raise your hand. That's what I thought. Okay. So we're going to give you some thoughts, but now is your chance to kind of get those questions in. And so we want this to be kind of more of a conversation. So we want to hear your questions because we do this a lot. Justin's obviously had a lot of success here. And so we're going to give you some of our thoughts on how we go about doing that, but we want to hear from you and hear some experiences.
Quickly here, why is a strong pipeline key? What do we care about? Number one is improve quantity. The goal is to have a pipeline that is robust with a number of companies that are actively potentially selling. To improve the quality of that pipeline, at a higher quantity, the probability that you can identify a high quality target is a hell of a lot higher. And then improve the post-LOI process, which I'm going to hand to Matt here in a second, but having that confidence to close on a business that you know is good because you've seen enough opportunities, you know what good looks like, you know what not good looks like, because you're going to find not good, you're going to find not good processes, you're going to find not good owners, and being able to identify exactly what a good post-LOI process looks like requires repetitions. And while Clint has a phenomenal close rate from LOI to close, kind of all of the statistics I see, particularly through the proprietary channel, it's about 20% of signed LOIs end up actually closing. And so if you're putting all of your eggs in one basket of, this is my one LOI that I'm going to sign, I'm going to buy this one business today, that's a big risk for you to take in your sourcing mechanism.
So everybody that just had their hand up on being interested in buying a business, put your hands back up. If you're interested in buying a business, put your hand up. If you have actually ever bought a business before, put your hand down, right? So how many people are looking to do it for the first time? All right. So we can help you guys. How many of the people that have bought businesses before, how many have bought more than 5? Okay. So where I'm going with this is that repetition is your friend, and the way you get better at doing deals and negotiating them post-LOI is by doing it a lot. And the way you do it a lot is you get a lot in your pipeline. And the problem is, particularly the first-time searchers, and I'm speaking to the searchers and the guys who have done it only once or twice, the chances are very high that you're going to shoot yourself in the nuts when you're going through the deal, okay? Even after you bought 5. And the most likely reason that you're going to shoot yourself in the nuts is you're going to get one deal under LOI, and you're going to think you won. And you're going to think you hit the finish line, and you're not going to be able to say no. And you're going to give up on some bad terms, or you're going to lose control of the process, which is how you win post-LOI. And generally, you're going to be afraid to walk away if you don't have a good pipeline. Whereas, if you have a pipeline full of 50 deals, and you're talking to a seller, and you give them a term sheet, and you say, this is the deal I'm willing to do, and they say, I don't like this, or I don't like that term, instead of negotiating with that seller, if you've got 50 deals in the pipeline, the answer is, see ya, and you turn around and you call the next one on the list. So that is the strength. Let me see what we're missing. Not only, we talked about quantity. The other thing is obviously if there are 50 deals in your pipeline, just inherently they're going to be better deals. And so if you've only talked to 5 companies, the chances are that the quality of those 5 is not as good as whereas if you had 50 in your pipeline and you could choose the highest quality 5 and go talk to them. Anything else you'd add to that?
No, that's perfect.
Okay. So we're going to each elaborate on a couple of these. And what we're going to do is kind of set the stage for you guys on how we think about going out and doing our outreach. And it generally falls into these 4 buckets. And then what I'd like to do is you guys drive and tell us where you're going to go, because we've got a lot of slides behind this on tactics and what we can do and how we actually going about doing it with examples. But you guys tell us where you want to go, where your questions are. But I think most importantly, let us kind of set the stage on how you think about it.
So we when we sat down to talk about this, think about kind of outreach to business owners and building a pipeline with 4 main channels, bucketed by broad outreach and then narrow and direct outreach. Broad outreach being what is highly scalable, what can reach a lot of owners, what can be an efficient way to build top of funnel. And you'll hear me use a lot of sales terminology in this conversation, because in my opinion, buying a business is high dollar value B2B sales. And we use a very similar process to when we search to buy a business. I now manage a sales team as part of my time selling 7-figure contract value things to the Fortune 500 in the US, et cetera. It's the same set of tactics. And so the primary tool that I've used, particularly in the broad outreach bucket, is email. It's highly scalable, it's customizable, it has which are the pluses, the minuses being everybody probably in this room has 150 unread emails this morning, and so it's really hard to stand out from the noise. It is incredibly possible, and that is made possible through a lot of the tools that are now available, and I'm not talking about the newest AI tool, we can get into that, but really, it's about kind of follow-ups, being persistent, being kind of hanging around the rim, and having some sort of hook in that email that allows the owner to say, wow, Justin actually looked up my business, Justin is interested in me. And then the consistent long-term follow-up to that has worked incredibly well for us.
So I'll say a couple things about the other kind of piece of broad outreach, and that's like a hard mailer. And when I say a hard mailer, I literally mean like a letter. It could be similar template to email, printed out. It could be, a 1-pager. It could be a 3 or 4 page summary on what you're doing, what you're searching for. But what I'll say is you really have to do all these. So I kind of glossed over that there at the beginning. But the important point is to make about these are tactics, and you can choose them all, and there are right and wrong ways to do them. But in order to be successful at all, there's kind of a flywheel, and they all play off of each other. So it's important to literally do every single one of these. So back to the hard mailer, a lot of times we like to, talk about the businesses that a lot of us are searching for. It's kind of sweaty businesses. They're mom and pops. Jason Hill doesn't even check his email. There's probably 10,000 emails in his inbox right now that haven't been read, right? And so one other way, in addition to email, to getting in front of those is to literally put something in the mail and send it to their house or their business address or where their son-in-law lives, and anything you can find for the person, and literally send them a letter. It doesn't have to be a handwritten letter. It can be, again, a presentation, but it's important to actually put something in front of them that is tangible, that shows them that you're a real person with money interested in buying their business. Another thing that we utilize is a call campaign. Now, when I speak to a call campaign, I'm not speaking of cold calling. Certainly you can do that. There are certainly industries where it might make a lot of sense to whip out a big list and rattle through it. But if you can get a mobile number, a lot of guys live on their cell phone, particularly if they're doing, plumbing, HVAC, they're out in the field, they live off their phone. If you can get a mobile number, or you think if you're actually good on the phone and you can talk your way through a gatekeeper, you can call the main address. But what I speak to here is, we've got the cold calling on the list, but targeted outreach via calls to the same folks that you're emailing. So when Justin talks about emailing, you send them an email, you send them a hard mailer, you call the same folks on the targeted list, and you're trying to punch through so that you can actually get them on the phone and give them your pitch. And then the last one is probably the most important.
Most important, and I'd say this applies to everyone. Chris.
Hey, as you guys are going through this, just this slide, can you put some numbers? Like how many emails are we talking per month? How many hard mailers are you doing? Just to give some context.
Give me 90 seconds. We'll get there.
You have 60.
This is the most important point he's going to make.
Yeah. So real quick, because that's a great point, and we're going to, we've got
We'll go right
statistics.
to Q&A. Yeah.
Goya, important for everybody. I would say particularly important for those newly minted MBAs that are the devil, according to some people. I was one of those newly minted MBAs. I'm still a fairly newly minted MBA with a shiny, fancy degree. But building credibility is incredibly difficult, particularly when you look like you're 14 and have no industry experience. And so absolutely start kicking down doors. I travel a ton. I travel a ton during the search process of if there's an industry expert that tells me, yeah, Justin, next time you're in Atlanta, give me a call. Well, guess what? I'm in Atlanta next week. Just so happens to be that way. I was going to be there anyway. Or industry conferences. I've attended industry conferences for God knows how many different things, spend a few days beforehand, sending emails, setting up meetings, and then all of a sudden you're a real person that has real interest. You've exhibited something above and beyond what the typical individual looking at that business. It's something that when you send them that next email and you tell them, hey, I was at the MRI conference last week. I saw you on the list. I must have missed you. I apologize. But you send them a picture of you standing there with a sign. That all of a sudden says, wow, this is a really serious person, and your email stands out, your outreach stands out above and beyond. And then you can actually speak the language a little bit. Part of the reason why particularly the freshly minted MBAs get a bad rap is you show up there with a fancy degree and you say, I can run your business. I don't know any words. I don't know the terminology. I don't know your people. I have no idea what motivates them, but I can do it. And it's like, well, show me that. Show me that you actually care. And like the easiest way I have found to make that investment is get out from behind the computer screen, go meet them in person, do something that stands out and is a little bit different.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is a lot of times I find that folks who are trying to buy businesses for the first time forget about the job to be done, the job that they're trying to do. And the job to be done is to find a business and close a transaction. The job to be done is not to run a mini private equity firm or to play private equity or to put on your vest and be searcher bro. Your job until you close a deal is to focus solely on finding a business and closing it. And that's what we're optimizing for. And the problem is a lot of guys do not get off their ass, particularly if you come out of investment banking, private equity, management consulting. You are used to processes. You are used to Sims coming to you. And in this world, there is no such thing as process. The way you find deals is you get in your car, you go knock on somebody's door, and you talk them into selling your business. So,
for instance, tell them you are working for a private equity-backed roll-up. What are you doing after this conference? Matt.
So we are here until Sunday, and then on Sunday, I'm flying to Dallas, right? And I emailed my analyst and said, send me a list of every business in Dallas that is similar to the one that we do that's a potential M&A target. And I'm renting a truck, and I'm literally driving around every one of those businesses, and I'm just going to knock on their door, and I'm going to go in and talk to them. And they may tell me no. They may say, we're not here. But I'm going to talk to every single one of them because I don't want there to be I never want there to be a case where someone said, we missed you, or, we didn't do the work and we didn't put in the work. But the other thing it gives me the ability to do is circle back so that when I email somebody, right, you got to do all these things. When I send somebody an email or I send them a hard mailer or I call them, I can say, instead of just a cold email, it's, hey, I'm Matt Hinson. I stopped by your office last week, and unfortunately, I missed you. Do you have some time to talk? And it's a little mind kind of tweak, for lack of a better word, that kind of makes a mini connection with someone. And they're candidly, if you do little things like that and you've got the ability to kind of weave that in, they're actually more likely to respond to you. And so hopefully I'll hit them, but if not, now I've got ammo to follow back up with them and call them and text them and say, I stopped by your office, you weren't there, is now a good time to talk. Yep, go for it. Introduce yourself, get a mic.
A minute.
Hi, this is Don Meyer. I'm here in Austin looking for a company to buy in the B2B services or manufacturing space. When you go knock on doors, are there certain like tactics or strategies that you see work better? As an example, I think DoorDash, walked in the back door of the kitchen to get to their general manager, because if they went in the front door, then they actually would just get rejected. Have you seen anything like that that's effective?
Yeah, so something that works for me is to stop. You got to take off your salesman hat. So this is sales, as Justin said. It's B2B sales, and that's the goal. I have money. I'm trying to sell it to somebody to give me their business, right? But you can't walk in there as a salesman. Does that make sense? And so one thing that I do is instead of walking in and immediately jumping into the spiel, because a lot of people that get over the hurdle of being able to actually walk in, now the hurdle is like, what do I say? And they go into sales mode and they go right into, hey, I'm Matt Hinson with Searcher Bro Capital. I'm here to talk to Chuck about your landscaping business. Something that I think really works is you kind of place, for lack of a better word, I go in there and kind of act stupid. And I'm curious, right? Because you don't know who you're going to talk to. Is it going to be a receptionist? Is it going to be the owner? And a lot of these businesses, the owners are dressed and they're similar to the other folks that work there. So you just have no clue you're going to talk to. And so I'll just kind of walk in and I'll just kind of look around and act like I don't know where I'm at. And I'll say, and somebody eventually will say, can I help you? And I'll say, hey, I'm Matt Hinson. I'll tell them what the business that I'm in. And I know what type of business, obviously, that they're doing. I'll say, I'm interested in talking to somebody about landscaping. And that's so broad, right? It doesn't know, that could be anybody. And they'll say, well, are you interested in talking to is it like residential or commercial? And then I'll say, it's a pretty big opportunity. So I'll say commercial. Big opportunity is a key word. So their interest is peaked up. And you should do your homework. So hopefully you know who the owner is. And I'm just making up a name here. It's Chuck. And they may say, okay, well, you should probably talk to Larry, the sales manager, and he can talk to you. And I'll say, no, I don't think so. Is there somebody more senior that I could talk to? You know the answer, right? But you're curious, and you're going in there and you're asking for them to help you. A lot of times people walk in and they have something to sell, and I'm trying to help you. But if you kind of reframe it as, I'm wanting you to help me, and I'm wanting to help you put me in touch with the person I want to talk to, it seems like they're more likely to help you.
I'll add that owners in particular, the guard goes up when you show up as a salesperson.
100%.
They're used to being sold something every day. Their inbox is full of things being sold to them. So breaking through that is crucial. And then point two is once you get this business under LOI, the greatest kind of correlation to is this going to close or not is your relationship to that owner. And so if you've built that foundation, you've spent that time, you've listened to their problems, if you don't know the spouse's name by the time you get to LOI, that's a huge red flag in my mind. You've got to come in there and show them, because you're going to be a partner in this to at least some degree, or you're going to buy the business and manage their employees for them, which they probably think of as family. And so that piece of coming in there as a potential partner to them and building that relationship first sets you off on a very different foot than coming in there as, hi, I'm Johnny Joe and I want to buy your business. I've got some statistics up here of what we ran for cold emails. So this is kind of once we refined our process per Chris's question, who's not sitting there anymore. Point being, outreach targets, when we were doing cold emails, we did, for one person, we would do 100 personalized step one emails. The follow-ups to that were automated. Over the course of the automated follow-ups, we'd get about 25 responses. Most of those would be opt-outs, but 8 of them would be positive responses saying, I want to get on the phone with you. This sounds interesting. One of those 8 would go missing sometime between actually getting on the phone with them. We'd have 7 owner calls. Of those 7 owner calls, there'd be kind of interest in pursuing more from about 25% of them. We'd send 2 NDAs. And then we get one company to provide us data out of that NDA per week. And then from there, you're kind of, that's your point where you're like, all right, now this is a real relationship building. How do we either decide this is worth buying or not? But in my opinion, if one searcher can see financials on one company every week, and you're willing to do this for a year or more, that is a very robust pipeline, and you've seen, you know what good looks like, and you can be a heck of a lot more confident on the business that you are putting under LOI and want to close if you've got enough repetitions in it.
Go ahead.
Sure. So, and this is
What was the question?
who is writing those personalized step one emails. So we ran it all through Airtable. So what you can see here, actually I pulled this from my sales team just the other day. First name, last name, where they work, which email sequence I want them to send from, a source, meaning, so when I say customized, I'm telling them where I found them. That can be, I saw your name on an industry list. I saw you attended this conference. I just found you on LinkedIn. And then a PS statement that is, I see that you volunteer with the Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout, wonderful organization. Pick your favorite thing. The more personalized, the more personal, the better. But the point being is so I outsourced fairly heavily. The virtual assistant that I use, we trained very heavily on what makes a good target for us. And so she would have this entire list ready for me. So I would go from a NAICS code that I'd give her. She knew all the places to go pull that data. We can talk about exactly what those data sources are. Classify the businesses as yes or no. Basically, should Justin spend the time to do that? And then it was just my job to go through this list and do 100 a week.
Ross.
Ross Drew. We're out of Atlanta, a couple of small businesses in the home construction space. For the boots on the ground portion, when you're out in the streets, obviously it's a delicate situation. If you're walking into a business, you don't necessarily want to tip anybody off that what you're doing. Certainly if somebody walked into one of our businesses and said, I'm here, I want to talk to the owner because I want to buy this place, you might indicate to an employee that that is something the owner is actually interested in, although they don't even know you're coming. If you can't get in touch with someone on the senior management team that would be someone you could have this conversation with, are you leaving any level of info or just kind of missed opportunity, move to the next one?
So I will always leave a card. So if obviously I know before I walk in who I want to talk to and who ideally I could talk to. And if I can't, everything is nebulous until I can talk to them. And so we're not talking about deals. We're not talking about transactions. It's just, I'll just say I'm in the same business. I happen to be in the neighborhood, just here to say, hey, introduce myself. And then if I can get in front of that person and where it's in the right setting, I'll broach the topic, because if they're smart, sometimes they can tell within a couple of minutes. And then if not, if they say Larry's not here, I'll give them a card and say, have him give me a call when he gets a chance.
Hey, I'm Joe, San Francisco. We have a small portfolio of companies there. Sam's Boot Camp's helped us a lot to get where we are. So my question's around, how do you get them over the bubble that Clinton was talking about valuations? Two-part question. And then second part, how do you know when they're really ready to sell? Because it feels like a lot of times there's like years there.
So let me take the second part first. So like Justin said, this is sales. So whenever I meet a potential target, and we'll just call them a seller, because they may not be a seller, it's just a potential target for the reason they may not be ready. But in addition to building that rapport, building a relationship, I am trying to qualify that lead as quickly as I can. So the first step I'm trying to get over, make contact, introduce myself, let them know why I'm trying to have a conversation, and then, laser focus on, are they ready to have this conversation or not? Because if they are not ready to sell, I'm out of here. I'll call you back. Maybe I'll check you next quarter, next year, whenever it makes sense. But I don't want to waste my time with them if they're not ready to sell, because I do not want to. There should never be a situation where you send somebody an offer. So first of all, someone should never receive an offer from you in the form of a legal document in an LOI. They should get your offer, negotiate it. If they accept it, write it up in an LOI, and then give it to them. But there should never be a point where you have delivered someone an offer and then they say, I'm not ready to sell, because you should have cleared that hurdle first. one, I know they're ready to sell. Now we can proceed to, let's figure out what the offer is. And then on the valuation front, you have to control the dialogue. And it's really shock and awe. Like, you need to be able to move very quickly. And so I'm sure Justin does this too, but each step along the path in kind of your deal timeline should be, you make contact, you make a conversation. Are you interested? Yes. Next step, sign an NDA, right? Another mistake is a lot of first-time buyers have too much latency in their process. And so what they will do is they'll find a deal. They'll make contact with the person. Are you interested in selling? Yes. And then they'll say, Kevin Henderson, I need an NDA. Can you draft an NDA for me? And then 3 days later, when they're busy, they get their NDA ready, right? And then they have comments, and then that goes out the door. Where the way it should happen is you should have an NDA in your back pocket. Seller says, I want to talk. Here it is, right? You should already have a form, you should have a form draft of your LOI. You should have a form draft of your diligence request list. I see this happen all the time on Twitter. Somebody has a seller where they're in a good conversation, they're ready to do it, start diligence, and somebody will blast out, Elliot Holland, you got a good due diligence request list? Or does anybody have a good diligence request list for a landscaping business? You've shot yourself in the nuts already. When somebody says they're ready to talk, you need to be ready to send them an NDA, request list, form LOI, whatever it is, immediately. And if you can do that quickly, right, you're controlling the process. And when it comes to things like valuation, you've got comps, they're ready to go, right? You've got terms. You have already thought out the forms of the general forms of your transaction. So if they hit you on valuation, you already know, if they hit me on valuation, I'm going to ask them to carry more in a seller note. Or if that doesn't work, I'm going to pick more up in like an indemnity escrow. And so you put the thought into developing everything. So as soon as they hit you with something like valuation, you can come right back with something else. And it just doesn't give them, it's shock and awe. That's how you control.
Couple quick points to add as far as triggers of knowing when somebody's ready to sell. If somebody's prepared, if they've had some of these conversations before, if they've talked to a broker, if they have if they can give me I generally know businesses in my space sell for this, something like that is an awesome trigger, and I'm ready to go. Or number two, if they're starting to spend the money already, great sign. Hey, we got the business, been looking at a beach house out on the coast. Awesome. And then the third one that we always ask for, and has worked phenomenally well for us, is when can I come out and get dinner with you and your spouse? And if I can get the spouse involved, and then he or she is having this conversation as well, and we're starting to paint the picture, then it's serious. If it's no, we'll talk on the phone, don't come out here, this is interesting, but I'm willing to commit 15 minutes a week to talking about this, hey, it's wonderful, I'll check in with you next quarter, I actually will only call you the next time I'm in Atlanta. I'm not going to hop on a plane right away and go.
Yeah. The other thing I'll add specifically to valuation, and this is really any term in a transaction, and this kind of draws it back to why you want a strong pipeline. If you have ever found yourself in negotiation and you're trying to talk a seller into why they should transact with you at a certain valuation, you've shot yourself in the nuts, right? Because you want 50 deals in your pipeline. You want to go to a seller. You want to give them an LOI. Hey, I think your business is worth $5 million. No, I think it's worth $6 million. Okay, I'll talk to you later. And if you've got 50 names in your pipeline and they're real leads, you can flex that muscle and you can walk away. But what happens is a lot of first-time buyers, this is their shot, and they think of it as their shot, and they don't have the ability to walk away, and so they lose. And so, long story short, the best tactic to win that conversation is just to avoid it completely.
Question over here. I'm Lucas. I own a niche manufacturing business in New Jersey that I bought about 2 years ago. And there have been a few times in the last 2 years that I've actually been evaluating a tuck-in kind of add-on small deal. And I will meet with the sellers, and it'll be the type of business where they can't really transact unless it's with somebody like me that could absorb them. But what gets in the way every time is I'll get on the phone with them, they'll be interested in selling, We'll talk about some sort of high-level valuation of how I'd go about valuing the deal, and then their accountant or lawyer gets in the way and is like, 10x revenue or something. As an example, I spoke on the phone with somebody in Oregon and flew there from New York. We spoke on the phone about $45,000 to buy his set of patterns that I would fold into my business. And then after spending 2 days with him, his accountant had told him that he should get $280,000 for the business. And then I flew back, thousands of dollars later. And so like specifically in situations like that, when accountants and lawyers are getting in the way and their interests are more aligned with the seller than mine, and the seller thinks I'm just trying to pay as little as I can, like how do you actually navigate that type of situation?
So the answer to that is radical candor with the potential seller about being burned in the past and qualifying your leads up front. And so what I often will do is when we get to the point where we're going to make an offer, because I have an investment committee, right? And there have been times in the past where the same thing has happened. And the way it works is before I send out an LOI, I literally have to go and talk to a group of guys and they say, send it at this price and this value and these terms. And I go send it out and we try to go through this dance, and it makes me look like an idiot because now I got to go back and do that song and dance again. And so when it gets to that point, before I even talk to my investment committee, I will have a very candid conversation with the seller and be radically transparent and say, listen, these are the ways we're working together. I'm the broker here. You can always blame somebody else, right? Blame the accountants in the past, blame the lawyers, blame the business brokers, and say, listen, I'm here to make you a fair deal, but I've been burned in the past for this reason, and tell them exactly what happened. And just be honest, right? And say, I've had times where I've spent a bunch of money, someone else comes into the picture, and then things change. Is there anybody else that you're going to need to talk to get approvals? Is it your wife, other family members? Do you have a trusted advisor that we need to bring in? Are there any folks that we need to talk to and bring into the conversation early rather than later before we invest all this time together? And just be super honest with them, but qualify, because the problem there is that you underqualified that lead. And going forward, you won't make that mistake again.
I'll also add, in my opinion, this is a long-term game, right? Like, hey, you don't have it figured out today. That's fine. Let's stay in touch. If it is actually a really good business, let's stay in touch. And at some point, we're going to meet in the middle, or we don't. In which case, if we don't, then hopefully that there's a good reason for that, and went somewhere else, somebody else overpaid. So be it. But like long-term game. So like I've got a laundry list of folks that I still just call every quarter because their valuation was double, and we're already. I'm talking to a few different folks that their valuation was 2x what I thought it should be 3 years ago. Their business has grown 50%, and their valuation is still the same. Great, we're closing that gap. We're getting there. That works.
One over here.
Hey, Justin. Grant McClure, Brightleaf Holdings. Quick question for you. Your statistics are remarkable in terms of call conversions in particular. We haven't talked about the email on the screen, but it might be an interesting starting place to describe your philosophy on messaging and structure within sequences. I'm curious about the special sauce that leads to those conversion rates.
So this is our email sequence, kind of long-term. Like we did, what do we have here? 14 steps. I think this is over the course of about 6 months. It's all about positioning ourselves as being the right answer for that business owner at the right time. I'm not a salesperson. I'm here to be a partner. I'm here to be helpful to you, to your company, to your organization. And I think I can be the right home for that business because I've done a lot of the work already to qualify that business. I've looked at the website. I know the owner, and I can speak the language. And so that first email is like very little about me, but hopefully exhibiting some amount of knowledge about their business and their industry, and then I'm following up. I'm trying to be incredibly pleasant. I'm trying to sell myself and my capital to them in a way that they would want to be sold to. And so over time, the emails get far more kind of relationship building, less about buying a business. And while we get way down the email sequence over many months, hopefully, I actually know this to be true, and you can kind of go in there and see the reply rates, even to things kind of step 6 and beyond, of we've got a pattern now, and we spend a lot of time on this email sequence on the upfront, such that when somebody sees email 13 from me, they're going back and they're going to search my name in their email inbox and going to be like, holy cow, this guy's emailed me for 5 months. These are all thought out. They're clearly sent only to me, though I've done my fair of engineering around that to make it feel that way at a scalable pace. And it's about, then all of a sudden they sit there and say, like, if this guy's willing to kind of put in this time and effort to email me, once again, engineered, that's probably worth a conversation. And so the number one reason, and we tracked this for quite a while, that somebody said they were willing to get on the phone with us was simply persistence. It definitely wasn't because my business partner and I have Stanford MBAs. Nobody cares. Truly, not important. I get the other Stanford MBA in here laughing, which is great, and there's probably more. And so, like, that's never mentioned. We both grew up in the Midwest, and so, like, we have it engineered such that if a business is in the Midwest, we have writing in throughout this sequence about the Midwest, but that's only for that. And so, like, once again, it's about making somebody feel special, and then showing them that we're willing to put in the work and the effort. And it ended up working out really well for us. I mean, this is I don't remember the exact numbers here, but like a probably 36% reply rate, 78% opens across 270 people on a more generic catch-all sequence that we had. Like, this email works. Email absolutely works.
Let me also add real quick, the sales cycle is so long that there are some things you should do early. Searchers who have never bought something think that they can't send that first email till they quit their job. You can send these emails while you're still working. The third business we bought was from a handwritten letter that was written the month after we bought our first business. It sat on the seller's kitchen counter for a year, and then we got the call. So you got to play the long sales cycle game.
Sam, you had one. Go for it. How do you build a list of companies, and are things industry specific? So industry specific, yes, absolutely. I want, at a minimum, my PS statements or some amount of the personalization I'm putting into the emails to have some amount of language. And so I think you'll see, actually, it'd probably be worth clicking in this one first. So the green boxes are things that I can download and feel personalized. The red boxes are things that I actually wrote. So 2 words is our catchphrase for I can give some amount of industry verbiage to you. And that we got incredible feedback on that, just as okay, you can actually speak my language a little bit. Building a list of companies, I'll run through this really quickly. There's a number of free resources. This is all about just designing a process, knowing which the resources there are, and then we basically created an SOP for what it takes to go from an NAICS code to go run through all of these paid resources. These change all the time about which one's the best. We used ZoomInfo. I've heard great feedback about Grotto recently.
And then data to include, we wanted company name, city, state, owner, email, LinkedIn, and website. We weren't going to get that through the first phase. But really all I would do is come up with the NAICS code. Basically what you're saying here is like some sort of niche industry. We'd go run through and classify those companies through Airtable, say yes or no. Once again, this is a virtual assistant. So we taught kind of our full-time assistant what to look for on a website to classify companies in or out. Example here being is now part of. I don't want to email that company. Not worth it. Not worth my time. Rule it out. Mark it as no. Custom design and assembling. Not like, even though it might be in the right NAICS code for me, not my type of company. Rule it out. Manufacture and distribute. I'm generally not in the manufacture and distribute game. That's fine, even though they're Anchor Scientific. I love like scientific equipment, maintenance, and repair businesses. These guys are manufacturing and distributing. Rule it out. And we go through kind of on and on about what all of these rules are, such that all I have to do is identify the NAICS code. If I can identify one of those a month even, my assistant would go through and go from a list of 10,000 to maybe 500. And then that 500 persists me for a month, such that I do about 100 a week, and we run it through the process.
We got one more, Pat.
Just a quick question. Is your subject line personalized, or what subject lines work for you?
We A/B tested a ton of subject lines. The one that worked best for us was quick intro, all lowercase.
The one that I've actually, so we do a lot of the same. The one that works the most for me, candidly, is to be very direct. And in the subject line, I will put, are you interested in buying or selling your business? And just because the thing is there's never going to be a situation where you're going to talk somebody into selling their business. Like the time is right or it's not. And if it's not right, you don't want to talk to them. And if it is right, just cut to the chase. And if they're interested in having a conversation and they're seriously thinking about it, they'll respond.
Did you ever do that? Did you ever put that in the subject line? Like, do you want to sell?
We've tried that. It actually, for kind of my mindset, wasn't something we wanted to do, because I'm totally okay with meeting owners that aren't ready to sell. Because I've done my homework on an industry, and so to the extent that I get in contact and somebody says, I'm willing to have a phone call with you, I'd mention that I'm trying to buy a business in this space, but if you're willing to kind of get on the phone with me and start talking to me, I'm willing to do that quarterly phone call for the next 5 years, and that's perfectly fine. So I was never quite that blunt.
Yeah, so you've got to, I guess, I agree that you got to A/B test it, but you've got to titrate it for the audience, because the way that you interface with a physician practice or a seller of a physician practice is different than a trucking business, which is different than, a staffing business. And so in some of those, things are just going to work. But keep going, Clint.
Really quick, when you hit them with the value that you want the offer, do you back it up with your math of how you got there, or you just throw the number?
Just dollars.
Yep.
So always quote dollars, never quote multiples. Do not tell them your multiple. It doesn't matter. Multiple's not what hits their bank. Dollars are what hits their bank. They can do their own math on what they think it's worth. They know what their EBITDA is. Usually my EBITDA is different than their EBITDA anyway, so it doesn't matter. So usually I hit them with send them, a term sheet. Never send them an LOI. I'll send them a term sheet, which is literally like one PowerPoint slide with like this amount, basically purchase price, indemnity, escrow, working capital, like 5 bullets, right? Send it to them. And when I send it to them, I've usually arranged a phone call. So I'll say, hey, Joe Bob, your offer's ready. I want to talk to you today at 5 o'clock. Can we talk? I set that call up, and then I'll send them that one slide, literally like 2 minutes before we talk to them. And I talk them through it, because I also, if I can help it, I don't want them receiving that email and reading it without me giving the voiceover.
That was awesome, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.